Hello students, today in this video we will discuss some very important questions from chapter number 1, the last lesson, which is written by Alphonse Daudet. So let's discuss these questions. After that, please write down these questions on your notebook and learn for examination. So let's see question number 1. Why did French not want to go to school that day? So the answer is French did not want to go to school that day as he had not prepared his lesson on the participles. His French teacher would certainly scold him for this. So French wanted to avoid going to school. So that was the reason that he did not want to go to school that day. Question number 3. What did French wonder about when he entered the class that day? When French entered the class that day, he was expecting a scolding from Mr. M Hamel. He spoke him very kindly and asked him to sit. Friends also wondered at the presence of senior villagers occupying backbenches of the class, and here you may include one more line that he was very surprised to see the dress of his French teacher M Hamel that day. Okay, because in the question they are asking about when he entered the class, what was the strange thing, what was the wonder, why he was wondered about, right? So all these things he noticed in the classrooms. Please do not include that there was no rapping sound and this and that, because that is something different, right? Question number next is, why did M Hamel write Vive la French? Vive la French means what? Long live French. So why he wrote this on blackboard? M Hamel wrote Vive la France on the blackboard to show his love for his country as well as for the French language. In addition, he was displaying his resistance to the German occupation of France. Question number 5. We have all got a great deal to reproach ourselves with, said M Hamel. Comment on this sentence. So M Hamel said this as most of the people of Lascaux could neither speak nor write French. The parents of students preferred to put them to work to earn money, and M Hamel himself did not give much importance to learning as it is demanded. So that's why he said this all. Question number 6. How did M Hamel display his love for the French language? So what he said that this French language is the most beautiful and the logical language. So like this, by saying this, he showed his love to French language. So what is the answer? M Hamel showed his love for the French language by telling the students that the French language was the most beautiful language in the world, the clearest and the most logical, and this is very important question, you have to learn this, okay? So this was his views about the French language. Question number 7. What was the bulletin board news that caused a change in the school? What was the bulletin board news that caused a change in the school? So what was the news? Where was this bulletin board? This was near on the way of Frank's school to home, and when he was avoiding that, coming to school that day, so he noticed that there is a great rush of people near that bulletin board. So but he did not stop there, because he thought that every bad news is coming for 2 years from that bulletin board also. So what was the news? Let's see. A news had been put on the bulletin board stating that only German should be taught in the school of Alaska and Lauren from the next day. So this was the bad news, and that changed the situations and the usual conditions of the school that day. Means you can say that was a great that impacted a lot on the schools of German, means of Alaska and Lauren. Whom did M Hamel blame for Frank's inability to answer his question? Whom did M Hamel blame from Frank's inability to answer his questions? So M Hamel blamed the habit of people of Alaska of putting off learning for tomorrow and not to sending their children to school regularly. He also blamed himself for neglect of learning of boys like French, right? So he blamed both the person, means all three, like the parents, the teacher himself and the students, right? Next, what was unusual about M Hamel's dress on his last day in school? So M Hamel had put on a ceremonial clothes on his last day in the school. He was wearing a beautiful green coat, a frilled shirt and a little black embroidered silk cap, which he generally or usually wear on the days of results and some functions, right? So that's why French was also, wondered or surprised that why this man, why the teacher is wearing this dress, right? So next one, what tempted French to stay away from the school? What tempted? This is a different question. What tempted French to stay away from the school? And the question one is that why he did not want to go to school, right? So that is what, because he was not he did not learn the lesson. So that's why he was not avoiding the idea to go to school that day. But here it is what tempted French to stay away from the school. So one thing here is French feared scolding at the school as he had not prepared his lesson on participles. Beside the warm, bright weather, the chirping of the birds and the sight of the marching Persian soldiers also tempted him to stay away from the school. You may add here that sound of the sawmill also, and the nature was very beautiful that day. So all these things were tempting French to stay away from the school that day. Question number 11 is, what a thunderclap these words were to me. Me means French. What were those words and what was their effect on the French? So what is this? When the teacher told in the class that today this is going to be the last lesson of French in your school, so those words were the thunderclap for French, and at once he came to know that why there is a change in the classroom and in the school. So let's see the answer. M Hamel told his students that it was their last French lesson, as an order has come from Berlin that henceforth only German was to be taught in the school of Alaska and Lauren. This announcement seemed to be thunderclap to French, as well as he was surprised and shocked on hearing them. So that's why these words affect this French. Question number 12. Who was sitting on the back benches during M Hamel's last lesson? Why? So we have read that some of the elderly people from the village were sitting on the back benches during M Hamel's last day. And who were those? Like the old hosser, the postman, right? All those persons were there. So if you want to mention those names, you can do. If not, so that is not quite necessary in this small type of answers, short answers type of questions. But when it is large answers, of 5 marks or 6 marks. So there you have to do that, okay. In the long questions you have to do. Some of the elderly people from the village were sitting on the back benches during M Hamel's last lesson. The villagers had come there to attend his last lesson, as it was their way of paying respect to the master who had given 40 years of faithful services to the school. So they came to thank in a way to M Hamel. Next question is, why does M Hamel reproach himself for his students' unsatisfactory progress in the studies? So here M Hamel had been rather irregular as a teacher. Besides, he had often sent the students to water his plants, and whenever he wanted to go to fishing, he just gave them a holiday. So he reproached himself for his students' unsatisfactory progress in studies. So see, here you may get 3 type of questions. That why does here one question is, why does M Hamel reproach himself? Right, himself, why he was blaming himself. Second question may be why he was blaming to the parents, and the third question may be why he was blaming to the students like French. So all these answers are different and you have to answer differently according to the question. Question number 14 is, what words did M Hamel write on the blackboard before dismissing the last class? What did they mean? Here it is by mistake. Why did they mean? It is what did they mean. So before dismissing the last class, M Hamel turned to the blackboards and wrote the phrase Vive la France as large as he could. These words meant long live France, and spoke to M Hamel's great love for his country and his deep sense of patriotism. And one more question they may ask that why he wrote that on the blackboard. So why he wrote? Because he was getting too emotional that time. His throat was choked and he could not speak anything. So that's why he wrote that Vive la France on the board. Last question for today is, what made M Hamel cry towards the end of his last lesson? So M Hamel had taught French at the school for the last 40 years. He was emotionally attached to the school and was really heartbroken to leave. All this made him cry towards the end of the last lesson. So this is this video, and here you have to note down these questions, and please learn these questions because they are very important. In our next video we will discuss long type of questions of the same lesson. Till then, goodbye.